Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today in this session I'm going to continue the types of machine learning. That is, we have discussed the supervised learning, that is our first type of machine learning. Now I'm going to discuss next type, that is unsupervised learning. As supervised learning is based on or it deals with the labeled data, whereas this unsupervised learning deals with the unlabeled data. Unlike supervised learning, where the data is labeled with a specific category or outcome, unsupervised learning algorithms are tasked with finding pattern and relationship within the data without any prior knowledge of the data's meaning. Here, in this supervised learning, as we know what is supervised learning, right? In supervised learning, we give a machine a label, that is input along with the corresponding output, but that is not the case in this unsupervised learning. Here we are not providing any label or any labeled data. Here it has its own task. It has to find the pattern, and it has to find the relationship within the data without any meaning, without any knowledge of data's meaning. Without knowing the data's meaning, the machine has to find the patterns and relationship between the data. This is what the unsupervised learning is. This unsupervised machine learning algorithm finds hidden pattern and data without any human intervention. That is, we don't give in output to our model. The training model has only input parameter values and discovers the groups and patterns on its own. As we give input and output in case of supervised learning, here we don't give output, we only give input to the machine, so that the machine has to find its hidden pattern and has to deal with the data without any human intervention. So this is same as the exams, when you sometimes get the questions which are not related to the concept, right? You will get different questions, that is out of syllabus. Sometimes you will get questions like that. Questions in this unsupervised learning machine has to solve. That means here we are only giving the input, we are not giving any output to that model. This is how the unsupervised learning is. For example, here we are giving some raw data to the machine. The machine has to interpret the data without knowing any output and without training on that data set. Then it has to process that, analyze that data, and it has to process, and it has to give the accurate output. This unsupervised learning is used in image and text clustering. That is, it groups the similar types of images or documents in an organized manner, and it classifies our content with recommendation. And it is also used in social network analysis, which detects communities or trends in user interaction or social media platforms. In this supervised learning, we have three types. They are cluster analysis, association rule learning, and dimensional reduction. In this cluster analysis, we have two algorithms again, K-means and hierarchical clustering. Let's look into each of them. Here I am giving the brief information about this clustering analysis. I'm not going in depth. So here the task of grouping data points based on their similarity with each other is called clustering or cluster analysis. For example, clustering can help you group customers with similar purchasing behavior, which can then be used for targeted marketing, product recommendation, or customer segmentation. We do online shopping, right? In that we give all the information, and we do shopping, right? When we do shopping, what this machine does, it comes to know about the behavior of the customer, right? When it knows all the behavior of the customer, then it will come to know that the customer is looking for this kind of product. Then what it will do, it will sort all the similar kinds of products on the one side, so that it will be easier for the customer to search, and it will also be helpful for the targeted marketing, and it gives the product recommendation on other application also. As I said before in before videos, when we search for anything on online shopping, we will get recommendation related to that product on other application also. Like that, this clustering is helpful for that. Have you wondered how this Netflix groups similar movies together, and how Amazon organizes its vast product catalog? The real world application, this is the real world application of clustering. This kind of data cannot be analyzed using supervised learning. So this kind of data is handled by the unsupervised learning. What this Netflix does, when we watch movie, and we watch one movie, then it will sort all the similar kind of movies for you, which is helpful for the target marketing. And in Amazon also, it will organize all the vast data catalog according to your your wish or what you are searching for. These clustering analysis or clustering algorithm is used in market segmentation, in which the businesses use clustering to group their customers and use targeted advertisement to attract more audiences. This clustering is used in a businesses, large businesses, like in online shoppings. What this clustering does, it will group those customers who are looking for the same product, and it will use the targeted advertisement to attract more audiences. This is how clustering is used. It is also used in market basket analysis. That means the shop owners analyzes their sale and figure out which items are majorly brought together by the customer. For example, if you go for a grocery shop every month and you will purchase the same items every year, right? Then what the shop owner does, the customer is taking these products at a time every month. You will notice that this customer is taking these products every month without fail. So the shop owner comes to know that these products should be kept every month in the shop, so that his sales get increased. This is how the clustering is used by the shop owners. And it is also used in the social network analysis, as we have experienced it. Because when we swipe reels on the Instagram, if you are seeing if you are watching a particular reel, then after a few time you will notice that the same niche reels are appearing on your Instagram. So it will give the recommendations also. This is how the clustering is used in social media. It also gives a friend recommendation, and it will also give the content recommendations. And it is also used by the doctors to find out the diseased area in diagnostic images like X-ray. In this clustering, we have two algorithms, that is K-means algorithm and hierarchical clustering. Let's look into these two algorithms. Let's look into the first algorithm, that is K-means clustering. It is an unsupervised machine learning algorithm which groups the unlabeled data set into different clusters. That means this K-means algorithm, what it does, it will separate the unlabeled data, or it will group all the unlabeled data in a different cluster. This K-means clustering is a technique used to organize data into groups based on their similarity. That is unlabeled, right? The unlabeled data only is getting separated, right? For example, in an online store, users K-means to group customers based on purchase frequency and spending, creating segments like budget shoppers, frequency buyers, and big spenders for personalized marketing. Here we have an example. In this K-means algorithm is used in online stores, because here in this online store, the it groups the customers based on their purchase frequency. That is, how many times the customer is visiting to our store, and how many items are purchased by this customer. This all things is maintained by this K-means clustering. And it also shows the budget shoppers and the frequency buyers and big spenders for personalized marketing. Let's understand it more clearly here. This K-means algorithm works by first randomly picking some central points called centroids, and each data point is then assigned to the closest centroid, forming a cluster. In this K-means, first of all, it picks the random points. Those points are called centroids, and then it will compare, or it will compare these centroids to other points, and it will take the similar kinds of centroid, and it will form a cluster. This is how the K-means work. After all the points are assigned to a cluster, the centroid are updated by finding the average position of the points in each cluster. As we get all the similar kinds of cluster or point, then we have to separate those clusters again. That means we are updating the centroids, and it will find the average position of the points in each cluster. This process repeats until the centroids stop changing, forming clusters. This process repeats until we get all the similar kinds of points related to that centroid to a fixed position. That means it should stop changing the cluster. The goal of clustering is to divide the data points into clusters so that similar data belong to same group. That's what we are doing here. We are selecting one random point as a centroid, right? Here we taking the random points as centroids, and then we are taking we are comparing these centroids with all other points, so that we can separate all the points that are similar, and we'll create a group. This is how the k-means works. Let us consider. Here we have some unlabeled data here. Here we have three kinds of balls. Let's consider we have red, green and blue balls. Here we have red, green, blue. Now from this we have to take the centroids. That means we have to choose some centroids. Let's take. Here we have one centroid from this group, that is R. Here from this group we have G. Here from this group we have B. Then we have to take the R, that is red kinds of balls, and we have to form the group. Now I have to take these all balls, that is R. Similarly here also G, and here. Now I have formed three different clusters over here. So this is how the k-means works. Here I have picked random points that as centroids. Then I have compared these with these all unlabeled data. Then I have grouped these into three clusters. This is how k-means works. Here we have algorithm. The algorithm will categorize the item into k groups. As we have saw in example, we have categorized the items into k groups or clusters of similarity. To calculate that similarity, we use the Euclidean distance as a measurement. The algorithm works as follows. Here we use Euclidean distance for this measurement. Here first we randomly initialize k points called means or cluster centroid. That's what we did in example, right? We categorize each item to its closest means, and we update the means coordinates, which are the average of the items categorized in that cluster so far. We repeat the process for a given number of iteration, and at the end we have our cluster. That's what we did in the example. This is same as I said in the example. This is how the k-means works. Now here we have second algorithm of clustering analysis, that is hierarchical clustering. This hierarchical clustering is also same as k-maps, but here we are going to create a hierarchy or a tree-like structure of the similar items or similar points. This hierarchical clustering is a technique used to group similar data points together. Here also we are grouping the similar data points only, which are based on their similarity. Here we are creating a hierarchy or a tree-like structure of these similar kinds of data points. The key idea behind this hierarchical clustering is to begin with each data point as its own separate cluster. Here we have to consider each data point as its own cluster. In the k-means, what we are doing, we are randomly picking one data point, and then we are going to arrange all the unknown or the data points according to that centroids, right? Similar to that centroids. But in this hierarchical clustering, we are going to consider each data point, and we are going to consider it as its own clustering, as its own separate cluster, and then progressively we merge or separate them based on their similar property. Let's take an example to understand this. If you imagine you have four fruits, with four different weights. Let's say we have 100 kg of apple and 120 kg of banana, and we have cherry of 50 kg and grapes of 30 kg. Here each fruit has its own group. Here we have one group of apple, we have one group of banana, and another group of cherry, and another group of grapes. Hierarchical clustering starts by treating each fruit as its own group. Then it merges the closest groups based on their weights. For example, here we first have the cherry. Cherry and grapes are grouped together because they are the lightest. As the apples and banana are grouped together because their weight is high, right? We have 100 kg of apple and 120 kg of bananas. Here we have a high weight, right? So we have to group these kinds of items together, and on the other hand we have cherry and grapes which have very light weight, right? So we are going to separate these two as another cluster. So we form two clusters, right? Like this we are going to separate similar kinds of data points. This hierarchical clustering is another unsupervised machine learning algorithm in which we develop the hierarchy of clustering in the form of a tree. And this tree shaped tree structure is called or known as dendrogram. As I said, we are going to form a tree of these data points, and this tree structures and this tree shaped structure is called as dendrograms. Let's see what is that. What is this dendrogram? A dendrogram is like a family tree of clusters. This dendrogram is a family tree of cluster. It shows how individual data point or group of data merge together. The bottom shows each data point as its own group, and as you move up, similar groups are combined. The lower the merge point, the more similar the groups are. It helps you see how things are grouped step by step. You may not be able to understand here. So here I have one diagram. Let me show you and explain it. So here I have an example diagram to show you how these datagrams are. So these datagrams are a family of tree for clusters. Here we have data points here. So what we have to do, we have to take the closest points and we have to merge them first of all. First, let's take here we have these 2 points first of all, P2 and P3. These are much closer to each other. So I'm going to group these as one cluster. So in this graph, I have taken the x and y graph. Here we have data points, and here we have Euclidean distance. In this we use Euclidean distance. Here I am going to group this P1 and P2. So here I have P1. Sorry, here I have P2 and I have P3. So I am going to group these two into one cluster. Again, if you see, these two are far from each other. Now I have these two groups. Now I have these two data points. Now I am going to group these two as one cluster. Here I have P4 and P6. I am going to form this as one cluster again. Again, what we have to do, as we have formed this as one cluster and this as one cluster. Now I am going to consider the nearer point to this cluster. Again, I have this point nearer to this cluster. So I am going to group this cluster with this data point. So I will get another cluster like this. I am going to group this as this and this. P1 with this P2 and P3 cluster like this. And again, here we have left with P4. Here P4 is nearer to this cluster. So I am going to group this cluster with data point P4. So it will form another cluster. So here I have taken that cluster again. Here I have P4 and I am going to group with this cluster like this. As we move up, the similar groups are combined. Again I am going to combine all these cluster into a one cluster by combining these two clusters. Here I have done this by taking the another cluster like this. This is how the dendrogram works. Here we have to take one data point as its own cluster first of all, and then we have to group with another similar kinds of data points. So we are going to and then we are going to merge the data points to get a cluster. Here you can see that the bottom point shows the data points as its own cluster or own group, and as you move upwards, the similar groups are combined like this. We have combined, right? The similar groups are combining. In the lower point we have merged similar groups, right? This is how the dendrogram works, and this is how the dendrogram looks like. So this was our second algorithm of clustering analysis. Now we have another classification or another type of unsupervised learning, that is rule learning. This is also one of the unsupervised machine learning. Here, association rule learning is a type of unsupervised learning technique that checks for the dependency of one data item on another data item and maps accordingly so that it can be more profitable. Here in this association rule learning, one data item is dependent on another data item so that it is more profitable to the user. It tries to find some interesting relations or associations among the variables of dataset, and as one data item is dependent on another item, then here it finds the interesting relationships among those variables or the datasets. It is based on different rules to discover the interesting relations between variables in the datasets. Here it follows some rules to discover the interesting relationship between the variables in the datasets. This is the association rule learning. Basically, in this association rule learning, one data item is dependent on another data item. So here the relationships is found out between these data items. By using these relationships, it can be useful or profitable to the user or the person. This association rule learning is employed in market basket analysis, web usage mining, and continuous prediction. Here is an example. Mostly this rule is used in market basket analysis, which is a technique used by the various big retailers to discover the associations between items. Here this association rule is used by big retailers who buy items in a bulk amount. These items are the items which are interrelated to each other. For example, the big retailer the wholesale person, he buys most of the items which are related to each other. Like example, he will buy a bread along with a milk or eggs and butter and jam. Like this, these items are interrelated to each other because the customer take these items at a time along with. So this is useful to the big retailers. So this is known as a basket analysis, market basket analysis. Here is an example. If a customer buys bread, he most likely can also buy butter, jam or milk. So these products are stored within a shelf or mostly nearby. This is how the business of a retailer or a shopkeeper works. He buys items which are interrelated to each other, so it should be easier for the buyers as well as profitable to the owner, because if the customer buy these items interrelatedly, that is at a time, then it will be helpful for the customer and it will be profitable to the owner. This is how the market basket analysis works. So this, we can also take another example, like if you are going to buy a laptop, then we also get the bag along with it, right? Because we need a bag to buy this to take that laptop. So what the shopkeeper do, he keeps that bag along with the laptop. That is the interrelated two items, that are one item is dependent on another item. So there is a relation between the items and they are interrelated also, that is associated with each other. There are many more examples. So these are some example among them. Now here is the third type of unsupervised learning, that is dimensional reduction. In this, dimensional reduction is a process and a technique to reduce the number of dimensions or features in a dataset. In this dimensional reduction, basically some of the dimensions are reduced so that the unused or the waste features of that data is removed, which are not useful, mostly not useful. Like this, we can reduce the dataset. The goal of dimensionality reduction is to decrease the data set's complexity by reducing the number of features while keeping the most important properties of the original data. This is what I said before. The main goal of this dimensional reduction is to reduce the data sets by reducing the number of features which are not mostly important, or by removing the features that are mostly not important and they doesn't affect to the main or the original data, by removing those data sets, and it will maintain the originality of the data. This is how the dimensional reduction works. Data feature refers to the different variables and attributes typically found in data sets. These data features are referred to the different variables. Here we have, if we have a data set, then there should be some features of it, right? The feature, the attributes, the characteristics. There are some of these. Then these characteristics or features or variables are known as data features. The more features a data set has, the more complex it becomes. If this data set has more features and more characteristics, then it will become more complex to use and to optimize it further. High dimensional data can lead to problems such as overfitting or a decrease in performance. If we have a data which is very high dimensional, then it may lead to a problem such as overfitting or a decrease in performance. If it has very high dimensional, then it will have the less performance. Or it will not fit for our use. For example, if we want to install some application which has very high dimensional in our phone, then our phone is not fit for that application. So it will become overfitted, or it will not perform very well in our. So this need to be decreased, or its dimension needs to be decreased for our use. Reducing the data's complexity through dimensionality reduction process helps to simplify the data. By reducing its dimensionality, we can use it very simply. We can use it in a very easy way. For example, image compression, where high resolution images contain a massive amount of pixel data. Storing and transferring these images can be resource intensive. For example, imagine you have a data set of images, each represented by thousands of pixels or features. This high dimensionality makes it computationally expensive to process and analyze these images. If you have very high dimensional or high pixel of images, then this dimensional reduction, what it does, it will reduce the pixels and it will save the images as it is, but without disturbing or harming to the original quality of the images. This is how the dimensional reduction works. Here we can use a techniques like PCA to reduce the number of features like pixels which are needed to represent an image. This compresses the image, reducing its file size while retaining essential visual information. This PCA is principal component analysis. Like I said, the images can be compressed. That means the features can be reduced or compressed. Then we can retain it as it is. So this is how the dimensional reduction works. So this is all about the unsupervised learning.